All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we're going to be talking about the new M5. This car was announced a couple months ago, and it's super exciting to see BMW still investing in performance vehicles. So I think a lot of people were excited about this, but as usual, there are some great things. BMW put in new technology, nice performance upgrades, but also there's some room for improvement. They did some things that maybe from an enthusiast standpoint we're not too excited about. So I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts and opinions on this car in this video, and hopefully you guys find it useful.
Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future.
Now, the new M5 is built on the new 5 Series chassis. So last year, BMW started selling the G65 series. So you guys might have seen these on the road by now. There's like the 540i as well as the i5 that have this new body style. And like usual, about a year after the new chassis is released, the M version came out. So BMW announced the new G90 M5, and this is going to be the performance version of that G65 series. Now, the good news is there's actually two different options here. We've got the G90 sedan as well as the G99 Touring. So just like the new M3 got a touring version, we're also seeing an M5 touring version as well. So I know a lot of people are really excited about that. And also this car finally comes with a new engine. So we've been working on the S63 for probably over a decade at this point, and now we finally got the new S68. This is still a twin turbo V8, and a lot of the structure about it is very similar to the S63. I know some people feel like it could just be considered another technical update, but this is a new engine from BMW. Now, the code for this engine is S68B44T0, and this is the same 4.4 liter V8 that you're going to see in the X5M, in the X7 M60i, in the 760i, basically all the higher horsepower BMWs, even the XM that sounds like that's not going to be around for much longer. But these cars with the S68 produce really big power, and the M5 is no different. Now, the F90 M5 had 600 horsepower and 553 foot-pounds of torque, but BMW bumped up the horsepower in this new M5 to 717 horsepower and 738 foot-pounds of torque. So a really significant bump in horsepower. And beyond those numbers, we've already seen somebody put this car on a dyno to confirm how much power it's making. And you can see in this video they've posted, they put it on a dyno jet, and the car made almost 700 horsepower to the wheels. So like a lot of modern BMWs, it seems to be underrated. And as far as the drivetrain, it's all still very familiar. It has the MX drive, so it's an all-wheel drive system that you can switch on and off. And then it also comes with the same ZF 8-speed transmission. So this car should be giving us the performance that we expect compared to the older BMWs, just a nice little bump up in performance. Now, let's start talking about some other things. So from the look standpoint, I do think that the car is a little bit awkward. BMW is putting a lot more sheet metal on these cars, so the doors are huge, the hood is huge, the trunk is huge. They make the lights really small and the windows small, so it just makes it look a lot more beefy without really making it look much more aggressive, especially from the front. I think they're missing some of the original design cues they've been using, dare I say, traditionally in the past. They try to give them those big open air intakes, especially in the bottom bumper for all the coolers and stuff that make the car look aggressive. And then the newer BMWs are kind of abandoning that. It's got much smaller grille openings, little slits for the brakes, and creating the air curtain and stuff. I think it would be nice if they went back to the older design language with much bigger grille openings, but I'm assuming from like an efficiency standpoint that doesn't help. They're trying to make the cars more aerodynamic and really channel air only where it needs to go. So it is what it is. From my perspective, again, there's a little bit of room for improvement, but a lot of people say when they see it in person, it looks a lot better. And again, there are people out there that have already received their cars. Some people have even already modified their cars, and you can see that with just a couple slight tweaks, the car looks way better for sure. So I think it's not a bad looking car, but it's probably not my favorite car in the BMW lineup. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, which In this case, the elephant is the M5. It is a hefty car. It weighs a lot because the way that they got this extra horsepower was using a plug-in hybrid system. So now it's not just the S68 engine creating the horsepower. They have a battery with electric motors that adds on top of what the engine is putting out. So if you look at the specs, you'll see that the engine itself is making 577 horsepower and 553 foot-pounds of torque. So it's actually less than what the S63 used to make, but they're adding the electric motor horsepower on top of it. Now, the way they listed the numbers is kind of weird, but the electric motor peak horsepower and torque is 197 horsepower and 206 foot-pounds of torque. If you do that math, it doesn't quite line up with the peak horsepower and torque overall for the system, but my understanding is it's where the power comes in. So they use more of the electric motor power and torque down low to fill in where the turbos aren't really working yet. And then up top, it puts out less power and lets the engine take over. So that's how they get the peak numbers that they did. Now, this does, of course, create a couple unique options with this car. One, of course, is it gets much better gas mileage. It's much more efficient. A lot of this is driven by the EU emissions laws. So a lot of companies you see kind of implementing this kind of hybrid technology in their performance vehicles. So it's something that just kind of comes with the territory. But for those of you that are interested in this, you're able to get up to 25 miles on just the electric batteries with it fully charged. So for example, you can leave your neighborhood or even go to the grocery store and stuff like that without the engine turning on at all. The other thing is we're putting less stress on the engine now because we're not pushing it as hard. Instead of trying to just make it make more power and put bigger turbos on it that are laggier and probably not as much fun to drive, we're actually filling up that gap with the electric horsepower. So you've got less stress on the engine that'll hopefully make it more reliable and make it last longer, but you're still getting the performance you're looking for, even though it's adding a lot of weight to the car. And like I said, this car is extremely heavy. If you look at the weight, you'll see that it has 5,390 pounds on the curb weight. So really crazy for this car. I can't believe that an M5 weighs this much. It weighs more than my old X5. It weighs as much as probably a modern X5. So I don't think that this was a great direction to go just from that standpoint. There are only so many things that you can do to improve the performance of a car, but reducing weight is one of those things that gives you better acceleration, better braking, more speed through the turns. Like everything about a car performs better when it weighs less. And no matter how well they try to hide it, there are just some things about physics that you won't be able to beat. Now, on that note, of course, they did do a lot to try to hide the weight, especially in an M5. Even though it's always been a bigger performance car, they need to be able to make it fun to drive and have some performance so that, you can enjoy it for what it was designed to do. So the car still maintains a double wishbone front suspension setup that will allow you to get much better camber curves so that you have better front end traction, kind of reduce the amount of understeer you might experience when you're going through turns, so that overall the car just handles better and feels sharper when you're going around curves. It also has the M adaptive suspension, so that means you can adjust the shock dampening from inside the car at any time. You can go from soft to stiff, depending on whether you're just cruising and you want comfort or you want the best performance possible. It also has rear steer, so that allows the rear wheels to turn slightly depending on how you're driving the car. Especially at low speeds, it helps you just maneuver around tighter turns and it reduces the turning radius. But at higher speeds, it can actually help the car have more stability by turning the wheels into the turn. So it effectively lengthens the wheelbase so that you can be more accurate with your steering and have more control when you're going around high speed turns. Now, this car, of course, also has a lot of modes for efficiency as well. So you can put it in Sport Plus or M mode and get the best performance possible, or you can put it in the electronic mode to get the best efficiency, get the best recharging speeds and stuff like that while you're driving around. So if you're daily driving it, but you also want to take it to the track, you'll be able to get the best of both worlds depending on what you're using it for. And another thing I thought was interesting is that they have added to the capability of the low temp cooling circuit. So a lot of times, they use a separate cooling circuit just for the intercoolers so that it can cool down the turbocharged air a lot better. but now they're also using that to cool off the batteries. So that will help the battery stay at an operating temperature that's ideal to give you the best performance possible, you know, and just keep everything working consistently. So I think that was definitely a good move. When you see a lot of cars driving hard at the track, you see the battery temperature go up and then they start losing power and stuff. And so this will hopefully make the car much more consistent, even if you're doing lap after lap after lap. So yeah, I think overall this car just kind of illustrates a trend that we're going to be seeing, especially from German vehicle manufacturers. The first one to get hit was the C63, which if you guys have been paying attention, the E-Performance actually comes with a 4-cylinder now. It comes with a crazy amount of horsepower, but again, they're filling up that gap with a plug-in hybrid system. So the battery pack and the electric motors are going to be supporting the extra power, and they've ditched the V8 and put in a 4-cylinder. Now, fortunately, in this case, we still have a V8, so we get some of those, you know, performance benefits that you can really only get with a high displacement engine. But, you know, it's kind of how things are going. I'm not sure what the E63 is going to look like, since that's really the next competitor for the M5. And I'm not sure what the new M3 is going to look like. A lot of people are saying that's going to be an EV, or it's going to be another plug-in hybrid option as well. But pretty much all the cars seem to be coming with some kind of hybrid technology, whether it's the mild hybrids we're seeing on like an M340i, or a full hybrid, like in this case, a plug-in option. But, you know, at $120,000 starting price, hopefully those of you that got one really enjoy it. Hopefully we get a lot more reviews as well. We're going to be waiting to see long-term how these batteries hold up, how the performance stacks up. We'll even hopefully see some getting tuned. Remember, we've got some JB4 data from the 7 Series that they tuned with the S68. So it seems like there's a lot of capacity on the table. And now with the battery performance on top of this, I don't know, could we see an 800, maybe even 900 horsepower car with just a tune? That's something that we'll have to see once these guys do more testing. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. You know, is BMW going in the right direction with this new hybrid setup, or did they get it completely wrong? Is this something that's inevitable and we all just kind of need to embrace it? You know, I'm curious if anybody has any other opinions, but for now, I think that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.